morning, and we're just looking forward. And the share will be Le'ilu Nishmas Chana Bat Zalman.
Okay, that's who you told me that?
Yeah.
Okay, so again, Chana Bat Zalman.
Chana Bat Zalman, yeah.
You know, there's a very famous story about somebody passed away, and the Rav came to pay a shiva call, and he said to it was just somebody who, it was sad that that person passed away. I mean, it's always sad that when a person passes away, but this was a young and unexpected. And the Rav said like this, he said, you know, people ask, what did the person die from? So this one will say they had a heart attack, and this one will say they had this, and this one will say they had that. But really, the answer is, it was the time. So Hashem made it happen in different ways, but really, it was the time to go. And as much as we don't understand these things, which we don't, nobody can say that they understand anything. Even the circumstances that surrounding a person's passing, we don't get it. So she should have an aliyas neshama, and all the tehillim that was said for her. You don't realize how strong that tehillim accompanies a person's neshama when they go to the next world. They asked Rabbi Levine. There was a story that Rabbi Levine, who was called the Tzaddik of Yerushalayim. So there was a woman in his neighborhood in Meishar, actually in Nachla Od area, and her husband was very sick, and they were a couple that had no children, and they were all they had for each other, and she was davening and drenching. Every book of Tehillim was drenched with her tears, and then Nebuchadnezzar passed. So during the Shiva, Rabbi Levine came to visit her, and she said to him, Rebbe, what happened to all my Tehillim? What happened to all the tefillos, my tears, my Tehillim? The gates of tears are never closed. So he said, you know that Tehillim is your husband's, his credit card in Shemayim. He's walking with those Tehillim to the Kisei HaKavod, and the light of the Tehillim surrounds him and protects him. And it's the best, you did him the best favor, you gave him eternity. In this world, it wasn't meant for him to go, but could you imagine how much gratitude he has to you now, that you gave him that gift of Tehillim. So all the books of Tehillim that were said for her will be a very, very strong merit for her. And she should have a good Gan Eden, Be'ezrat Hashem. And everybody here should have a good Olam Hazeh. It's good to see you all. Hi, Pauline. Hi, Mrs. Bernstein and friend. I can't tell who you are. You put your first names on. Hi, Miriam. And thank you, Rebbetzin Dov. And hi, Nomi. And hi, Ginny and baby. Is that your baby or your grandchild? Can't tell. A grandchild? Yeah. Everybody here looks like they're about 15 years old. So how they have grandchildren is beyond me. And hi, Daniela. Good morning. And Katie, it's good to see you. And hi, Marcel. Thank you for your comments. I enjoyed it very much. And hi, Yehudit. And hi, Dahlia and Geraldine. Thank you for saying hi, Geraldine. And Sarala. Sarala's just getting on. Hi, Dahlia. Hi, Shoshana. Oh, she didn't connect yet. And hi, Sippy. Thank you so much, Sippy. And hi, Sheila. And who else before you pop off of my screen? Don't go anywhere, anybody, because you all pop off of my screen. Whoever's on the phone. Hi, and hi, Shalom. And who else is there? Carmen is here. And Janice and Sharon is there. That's where Sharon is, yeah. And Pauline again. And I'm privileged and blessed right now to have one of my precious people in the world. Her name is Chaya, and she's like a daughter to me, but you didn't see her, she's just waiting. Ginny, do you know her? Because you just smiled. Anyway, she came in from America, and I'm privileged to have her right next to me. Maybe she'll put her face on. I don't know how you do that. Oh, there she is. Yes, she is. Oh, you did that with me also? That's so cool. Do it again, let me see. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, I saw I said hi to you before when you were getting on. Okay, and we're doing this shir. Okay, so it's Le'ili Nishmas, and now Lahavdil Inshma Abdallas. We're doing it also for Shlema for one of my chevra, Dinale Bas Rochel, who sometimes comes on this shir, and she always listens to it even if she doesn't come. We had an emergency crazy surgery yesterday, Baruch Hashem, it seems to be successful. We're saying the shir also for her, Yeshua, and a mazel tov for Avital and Aviv, who got married, also very precious to me. Okay, we're in Nun Hey. That's what we're up to. In Psalm 55, Parak Nun Hey. And we were talking last week about...
Before you start, I'm just going to tell you that Dahlia and Sarah both came on while you were greeting everybody.
Dahlia. I saw Sarah. I said hi to Dahlia. Dahlia, send regards to those nice people in Canada. I hope they're doing well. Tell them I bless them. They should be well. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Rebbetzin Rochel.
Sorry, Rebbetzin, it was Mem Ches or Mem Hey?
Wasn't it Nun Hey?
I'm just asking you.
I think it's Nun Hey. We're up to Nun Hey. Yeah, which is 55.
We're in 55, Nun Hey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Remember, we were talking about how David HaMelech felt betrayed by his Rebbe, and how that's the most horrible of all feelings, to be betrayed by someone who you spiritually grow from. And we learned that Achitofel, who was David HaMelech's Rebbe, he had a nekuda, a point within him of imperfection. Now, all of us have points of imperfection within us, but he didn't work on it. And so, are you comfortable? Yeah, sit in a more comfortable chair. Okay. Okay, so, and we were talking about how we're going to see how at the end of the parak, David HaMelech does what he always does, and that is he always goes from difficulty and crying out to Hashem. He always ends on a strong note of emuna and bitachon, except for one parak in Tehillim, the whole book of Tehillim, parak Peches, Peches. That's the only parak that he's not able to pull himself out, and that's why in another pasuk in Tehillim he says Hapach Nishbar. He was broken by parak Peches. Ultimately, we will be free. Okay, so now let's see. We're up to, we did them up, right? Okay, so we're up to Zion. We did Zion, yeah. Militantly Aver Kayona. That he wants to fly. Yeah, we talked about this. We want to fly away from our problems, right? Militantly. You want to tell them?
I got him.
Oh, okay. I'll give you a safer. You like the safer better? Yes, make it safer too. Better for your eyes. You need to look more at screens. So Nun Hey, and but leave all my bookmarks in there. All the papers are gonna fall out. Va'omar, and I said to Hashem, Mi teni aver kayona. I wish I had wings like a yona, like a dove. Ufa, I'll fly away. Ve'eshkona, and then I'll be able to relax. So we said last week, I think this is where we parak 55, 5, and pasuk Zion 7. We all feel this way at some point or another. You just want to run away from everything. And sometimes you should, as long as you don't run away to something that's dangerous. Meaning, you know what happens? People sometimes run away to food, to drink, to drugs, chas v'shalom. None of the Rebbetzins here, but this year goes out to a lot of different people. When you run away, go to run to something healthy. So running away to Hashem is the best place to run. Now, what does that mean to run away to Hashem? It means to jump into a shir. You know, you have a million things that are worrying you, people that are bothering you, bills to pay, whatever. If it gets too much, if you can't handle it, we're going to have to handle it. You're going to have to deal with reality. We must learn to deal with reality. But the time that you need to take until you can deal with reality, and you need to escape. So escape into something healthy, not into something addictive or unhealthy. You could escape into exercise, that's healthy. You could escape into creative writing. Best thing is to escape into davening. As it says in Tehillim, Kaveh el Hashem, right? Hope to Hashem. Chazak v'yamis libecha. Strengthen yourself when things get rocky. And then again, Kaveh el Hashem, run to Hashem. All the Beit Shemesh people afterwards, I have to talk to you. So I see Shoshana just got on. This is UK, Beit Shemesh. We sometimes have Dimona here. Okay, so I want to run away like a Yonah. Now, why does David Melch say like a Yonah, not like a tzipor? The real word for a bird is a tzipor, right? Some of you have the name tzipor, or fegi. So the Yonah, Yonah is mentioned in Shir HaShirim as being a bird that represents the Jewish people because it's a bird of loyalty. Before you go, I can get you the list of Shiluch HaKan. I have a bird's nest. I have Yonim on my porch. I think I told you this last week. Here in Israel, we have Yonim. Yonim, we call them, you call them pigeons. We call them doves, but really they're pigeons. But one of the Rabbanim in the old city said that the pigeons that we have in Yerushalayim HaKodesh are different, believe it or not, than the pigeons that are in every place else because they're kosher for karbanos. These pigeons are walking around and they're kosher for karbanos. Anyway, and the Yonah, the pigeon, is a bird of loyalty, and the Jewish people are called the Yonah. That's why also the name Yonah in Hebrew is like the name Simcha. It could go for a girl and it could go for a boy. There are certain names that are like that are universal, and that's because they represent a very, very big topic. Like the word, there are certain, I mean, everything is a big topic in Judaism, but because the Jewish people are called a Yonah and are called Simcha, that's we are a Simcha. Anyway, that's why he uses the Yonah to remind us that even when we feel we gotta run away, hold on to your emunah in Hashem. Now he continues and he says, I really want to run away so far. How many times have you said that when the kids are driving you crazy? Like, I gotta get out of here. Right? Archik nedod. Nedod, nav and nad, right? To run away, to move. And rachok, rachok, I want to go very, very far. Even to the point, alin bamidbar. I would even sleep in the desert. I would do anything to get away from my problems. Sela. Remember what we learned Sela? We learned Sela a long time ago. Sela means emphasis. When David Melch writes the word Sela in Tehillim, it means as if he highlighted this in yellow highlighter, because you can't do that grammatically or in any way in a Sefer of Tanakh. So he made up the word Sela to say, what I just said, say it strong, say it with emphasis. Say it like you mean it. That means you're allowed to say this pasuk, and you're allowed to have these feelings. This is the chiddush of this parak of Tehillim. We always think, if I have feelings of anxiety or of sadness or of worry or of anger, then I'm not from. That's how we think. I'm not righteous enough. And David HaMelech, David Malka Mashiach, he's saying to us, you're allowed to have these feelings. Okay, we're going to work through them, and we're going to give them back to God, and we're going to ask about them. But don't think that if you have these kinds of feelings, then you're not a tzaddikus. You are. You're just a tzaddikus with these kinds of feelings. And the Tanya talks about that. What?
I was going to add, raising my hand. It's like an emoji, but like in Tehillim, because the emoji tells you how to say something. So like the Tehillim
So Chaya was a teacher. And a very famous lady, can I say who you are?
I'm still famous.
She's so famous. She writes in Mishpacha magazine. And she also has a column in Food. Tell her.
I don't know.
Something about food. I'm not always up on the latest in these different kinds of things. But anyway, she's also a linguist and an English teacher, an English professor, the head of the department in a very
Could you tell us what Chaya's last name was?
Is Frischman.
I'm the one who spells my name.
Okay. Good to see your face there.
Whenever you see Chaya Frischman in Mishpacha magazine, you're her friend, you're her chavrusa, because she's part of learning group.
Also, it's a Yonah and Chag Sela, and you have the word Sela here and Yonah.
Very nice. So she says it's an emoji. So the word Sela, she says, is like an emoji. It's like David Melch wrote up, made it like, how are you supposed to feel at this point? Okay, so what's the hint here also? So now Chazal are telling us that every word, we know that every word in Tehillim is Ruach HaKodesh. So when David HaMelech says Bamidbar, I would like to go to the Midbar. And now we're reading Chumash Bamidbar, right? When we look Bamidbar, Chuslaris, you have Baloscha here and there, so we're in Shlach. So the Midbar, Chazal tell us, is the Koach HaZibur. It doesn't just mean the desert. The simple pshat of the word Midbar is desert. But whenever we say the word Midbar in Tehillim, meaning I just want to go far away, it means I want to have the ability to speak. And who are we speaking to? We're speaking to Hashem. All day long we're speaking to Hashem. So the Me'am Loet has a very interesting teaching about this. He says that there's a discussion about, are you allowed to daven to Hashem all day long? And so he says a very interesting story. He says that, who was it? Antoninus. Remember that Antoninus, Antony. He was very close to Rabbeinu HaKadosh. And he used to, some say he even converted. And he used to ask Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he used to ask him, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was the one who collated the Mishnah and set up he wrote down the first outline of the Torah Sheba'al Peh, of the halacha. Anyway, Antoninus was the head of Rome. He was a big officer in Rome. He was a Roman general, whatever. But he was a mevakesh emes. He was a seeker of truth, a true seeker of truth. So he asked Rebbe, he said, are you allowed to daven Shemona Esrei? Like, I know you're allowed to say 3 times a day Shemona Esrei, but since Shemona Esrei, the Amidah prayer is so powerful, can't we say it more than that? So Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said to him, no. And then he understood that Antoninus didn't get it. So he said like this to him, he said, they ended their meeting, and then he left the room, the palace room, and then he came back and he greeted him and he said, like, Hail Caesar or whatever. And Antoninus acknowledged him. He did it in public. And then he came back a half an hour later and he said, God bless you, O king. And Antoninus, the king or the Roman, acknowledged that. And he kept coming back every half an hour with another accolade, another, announcement of how he's honoring this Antoninus. So Antoninus finally said to him, Rebbe, it's enough already. So he said, you see, if you're saying a formal greeting to a king, it loses its power if you keep saying it. But because we're friends, because I'm your Rebbe and we're friends, we can talk to each other all the time on a personal level, but on a formal level, 3 times a day, Erev Boker V'Tzarem, we're going to see in a few minutes. That's how he calibrated the ability for us to be able to formally address God without losing kavanah, without making it lower in our eyes, etc. Okay, so I want to be able to talk to God. Chazal tell us an interesting teaching about this week's parsha. I'm going to tell you about the parsha, even though it's going to be next week's parsha for you guys. How is it possible that the Miragulum made a mistake? We have this question every single year, and every single year we have to find a different answer, because these Miragulum were the Gedolim. You know how it is with Gedolei Hador. We're taught that we have to, the Gedolei Hador we have to listen to them. So how could they have made a mistake? Do you know there's a halacha in the Gemara that says, what happens, this is a scary halacha, what happens if the Sanhedrin paskins to the Jewish people a law? Somebody asks the question, the Sanhedrin at the time of the Beis HaMikdash, the Sanhedrin rules on the law, and they make a mistake. So you know that we have to bring a korban. There's one korban that's brought for the whole Jewish people, the korban chatas brought, and the Kohen Gadol has to put his hands on the head of the cow as if he is atoning for the whole Jewish people. It's called a korban something tzibur. So the Gemara asks, how could that be? Is this a theoretical situation or is this a real situation? In other words, is it possible for the Sanhedrin to if this is a halacha, that means what you're saying is it's possible for the Sanhedrin to make a ruling that's incorrect. Okay, so if that happens, so we're not to blame, as you know, we're not to blame, etc. But sometimes it happens that, so how could it be that the Miragulum, the 10 out of the 12, 10 Tzadikei Emes, or Tzadikim, how could they make a mistake? So I think it's the Chassan Sofer who says it's because they didn't daven. Only Kalev davened and Yoshua davened. Each of the Kalev and Yoshua, before they began their shlichus, they prayed by themselves. They just begged Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu also davened for Yoshua, but because they added tefillah, they were saved. Even though the other Miragulum had many zchusim, they had many tremendous merit. And so you might say, well, how come they don't know that? We know that. Before we start cooking for Shabbos, don't you daven and say, please Hashem, let everything I cook come out good. It should be nourishing, it should be tasty, everybody should like it. We do that all the time. Before you go shopping, the cover Shabbos Kodesh, before you do anything, please Hashem, my students, my single students, I say to them, they can even say before they go on a date, please Hashem, let my hair come out nicely. I should look good. Yeah, we are all the time talking to God. So how come the Miragulum didn't know that? And the answer is because that wasn't the Hanhaga, that wasn't the way that people lived in those days. In biblical times, it wasn't the kind, we learned from their mistakes, but they didn't have that limud yet. That's when remember Chana began to speak privately to Hashem, and Eli HaKohen didn't know what she was doing. What do you mean he didn't know? We do this all the time. Because sometimes we have an avodas Hashem. Until it catches on into the Jewish people, it's just not part of us. We don't even realize it. Do you remember a few years ago when Perek Shira became a thing? It was maybe 20 years ago. Perek Shira became a thing. Until then, nobody heard about it, even though it was printed in the Sidurim. And the Sephardim and the Mekul Balam always said it, but it wasn't a thing now. It's a big thing. Ad Kedei Kach, to the point where Art Scroll has 2 books on it. So that's when he says here, but I want to go into the wilderness meeting. I want to speak to you, Hashem. Achisha miflatli. I want to achish kal mehera. Quickly, I want to quickly find shelter. I want to quickly find a place to hide, says David Melech. Meruach sar misar, from the storms, from the thunderstorm that's about to engulf me, or that has engulfed me. And here again, we see that David HaMelech is normalizing a feeling that we have of, we need to get through this as quickly as possible. Because we feel that, right? Do you ever feel that when you're going through something and you just want it to be over? You just want it to be next week already. We want it to be quick. And we think to ourselves, perhaps we think that, I wish I had more emunah, I wish I had more trust in Hashem. David HaMelech is normalizing all of these things. Now again, he doesn't allow himself to stay in that place of misery. He doesn't. But he allows himself to verbalize it. I'm just waiting for that thing from the hospital from her. Okay. I personally, I have two students, a few actually in my life who are psychologists. My son's a psychologist, he should be well. I have another psychologist in America, student, a doctor, and I have one here. And one of the things that I think is very interesting, to talk over is this concept of normalizing something. To normalize something means you're not so unusual. I know you think that you're the only one in the world who's felt so deeply and has been so hurt and has been so misunderstood and whatever, fill in the adjective or the adverb. But guess what? It's very normal to feel like this. And, and it's okay. It's just okay. Don't stay there. We won't let you stay there. I'm not going to have enough time today in today's year to get to the end, but David HaMelech does not allow himself to stay in a miserable place. He works so hard. And that's why this is a long parak, because works it through. he works very hard to express his emotions and yet to go back to basic Emunah 101. Everything is from Hashem. Everything has a reason. I am majorly, totally limited in my mind to understand. I don't understand Hashem. I don't understand how all the millions, billions of pathways of each individual person and the events, the hundreds of events in each individual person's life lead up to the Tikkun Olam. I don't understand that, says David HaMelech. And I'm going to go back to, I trust you, Hashem. I trust you, I love you, and I'm going to relax into your arms. But till he gets to that place, he expresses himself, he talks to himself. Now, I will tell you, my friends, it's not such a great idea to do this with people. Meaning, you have to think, let's say somebody insulted you, or somebody disappointed you. David HaMelech is not speaking here directly to Achitofel. He only in one pasuk he does, and that's through his tefillah. But he didn't write this letter to Achitofel. He wrote this letter, remember in the beginning we learned with 4 introductory words, a lamanatseach, and a niginot, and a maskil, and a ledavid. He wrote it to God. So you have to be very careful if somebody has hurt you in your life. You have to be you have to choose your battles, as they say. Sometimes it's better to talk over with somebody else. We know all the laws of Lashon Hara. We know that you're allowed to choose someone who is qualified to help you and who cares about you and who won't believe you, will take everything that you say with a grain of salt, which might be frustrating to you, but that's the halacha. And you can sometimes get off of your chest the things that are disappointing and upsetting before you directly approach the person. But to talk to God, that's always a good idea. That's what David HaMelech does. He teaches us that. So I want to, Achisha miflatli. A miflat is like a miklat. Well, I like to show you these words in Hebrew because I want you ladies to learn Hebrew. You have to become scholars. You have to learn Torah in Hebrew. You don't laugh, Dahlia. I mean it. You have to learn Torah in Hebrew. So I want to, and even though when I was a kid and my teachers would point out words with diktuk, I would not be excited. But I'm going to do it to you anyway because it helped me to learn. So miflat, which means a shelter, is like a miklat. Now the word miklat, because every building here in Israel has a miklat. A miklat means a shelter. So a miflat is like, miflat and miklat are the same. Okay, or similar. And now David HaMelech is now saying something that's scary to us. Because now up until now, he was vague. We don't know from the words that David HaMelech is saying, up until this pasuk, we don't know exactly what's going on in his life. We know that he's surrounded by scary things, that he's terrified of being killed. And even though he knew he would not be killed, he knew he wouldn't be killed because he knew in prophecy that he had 70 years. That's why in the last year of his life, remember the Medrash, he asked Hashem, what day of the week am I going to go? And Hashem didn't want to tell him. Then he told him Shabbos, and then he spent the whole Shabbos learning because he didn't want to leave this world, because he wanted to actualize his neshama to be Mashiach. Then Hashem tricked him. Whatever it is, we don't know up until now exactly who was bothering him. We know that it was a Russia, big person, bad person. But now he says Hashem, and he uses the word Hashem. Bala Hashem. Eat them up, Hashem. Livlo means to swallow, like Korach. We're going to come soon to Korach. It always works out when we learn Tehillim. I'm learning Tehillim. Oh Hashem, how many years ago were you in high school? We don't want to say. A zillion years ago, right? I don't tell any more people how many years I'm teaching. Like how you lower your age, you lower your, anyway, but
you end up teaching it the same season.
Right, thank you. But it always comes out that whenever you learn Tehillim or say Tehillim, it's relevant to your life, or to the time, this man, whatever. It always happens like that. So, you're showing me the bookmark. Anyway, so here we have swallow them, Hashem, like Korach, right? Like Korach, swallow them. In other words, Now, what does it mean to swallow? So in this week's parsha, we have the famous pasuk, Eretz ochelas yoshveha. Eretz Yisrael eats up her inhabitants. And the spies, they were saying that on a certain level to scare everybody, like you're going to be consumed. Rabbi Nachman from Breslau turns it upside down. He says, when you eat something, it becomes part of you. So if Eretz Yisrael eats you, it means you become part of her. That means you love living here. You breathe the land, you walk the land, you just love it. And when you have to leave, chas v'shalom, if you have to leave, your heart's like breaking. So Pala Hashem, Bala Hashem, swallow them up Hashem. That means help them to do tshuva. It doesn't just mean destroy them. Because David HaMelech, even though he calls for Hashem to weaken his enemies, but after all, they're Jews. So swallow them. That means like Korach did tshuva. Ultimately, Korach will have done tshuva. Ultimately, Korach will come back. So palag l'shonam, and make their tongues confused, like a machlokas in the Aramaic is the word palag is to have a lack of clarity. So these people are saying lashon hara about me, says David, about Achitofel and about Zoeg and about all the people who misunderstood him. So he says, Hashem, I want you to do like this. Swallow them up. It's all about the mouth now. Swallow them up means bring them into you, give them a little bit of inspiration to do tshuva, number one. And palag l'shonam, make their mouths confused. Because I'm telling you, I see, it's okay, ladies. I see, David Melech says, I see what they're doing. When they're talking lashon hara, there's no tachlis in it. They're just making people confused, like this week's parsha, like Shlach. If there's a tachlis, if there's a purpose to lashon hara, then you can say it. And you have to know the laws of Shmiras HaLashon. The laws of Shmiras HaLashon, the Kitzur, the simplest law, the simplest way to remember all the laws is the following. If you wouldn't mind someone saying about you what you're about to say, then you could say it. Or pick someone in your life that you are very protective of, like your baby, your youngest child, whoever you're protective of, if it's a sibling, a younger sibling, if it's a husband, if it's a wife, whoever you're protective of, that you feel that you have to take care of and protect them. Imagine someone speaking of them what you're about to say. Would you be okay with that? If you'd be okay with it, then probably what you're about to say is okay, because if you wouldn't mind someone else saying this about your beloved, but not just someone that you love, but someone that you feel that you need to protect and help, if you wouldn't mind that, if it's okay, then you could probably say what you're about to say. That's like the umbrella halacha. And the details are the details. You have to be saying the truth. You have to know that it's true. You can't get any pleasure at all out of saying it. You can't get even any benefit out of saying it. You have to say it for a purpose that you know will be absolutely purposeful. In other words, you have to say it in such a way that you know that there will be that there's a reason for what you're saying, etc., etc. So that's what he says here. What I'm seeing, what these people are doing, if I felt, said David HaMelech, if I felt that what they were saying was constructive and was actually going to bring people to tshuva and was going to help me, then okay. But it's a peleg. Peleg means it's making separations between people, between me and my nation, between me and my friends, between people that are talking about me now. My precious friend, the Rebbetzin, she should be a good debater for all of us, and a Melis Yosher, and have a good Ben Eden. She once asked the Rebbe, her husband, the Rebbetzin Rebbe, she was a very on-the-go kind of a person. She was always going, always running. And she always needed people to drive her places because you want to show up for something, right?
Took it out for lunch.
She said, she always needed drivers. And she told me something. She said when she married the Rebbe and she knew that her life would get much more busy, she asked him, should she learn how to drive? Or maybe she even had her driver's license. And she asked him, could she drive? And the Rebbe said, absolutely, no problem. Do it, whatever makes your life easier. Of course, no problem. Now, she was the Rebbetzin of a very, very religious. Miriam hosted her in her house. Miriam, Miriam. So anyway, so she told the Rebbe, so the Rebbe said she could, whatever makes her life, but she understood something. She understood that even though it would make her private life very, very much easier, and on a million levels, but she told me, she said, she realized that it's not so appropriate in certain people's eyes for a Hasidic Rebbetzin to drive. Now this is in America, in Eretz Yisrael for sure. Well, in Eretz Yisrael actually it's a little bit different. But she said that she was concerned that maybe somebody might say something bad about her. And not that she was going to be insulted, but she felt she doesn't want to cause another Jew to have something to say about her. So she withheld driving her whole life. In other words, and it was so hard for her, you can't imagine. That was like one of her major, major challenges, is to get a driver, because she wouldn't go in a cab with a male, she was whatever. It was a big, big problem to have women drivers driving her all over the place. And she had a million places she always had to go to. But because she wanted, nobody should have an opportunity to say something bad. That's a person who has real love for the Jewish people. I don't care if you insult me, but I don't want you to say Lashon Hara, because it's going to get you in trouble. It's going to make machlokas. It's going to make arguments. It's going to make people gossip and chatter. So Zalman says that. He says, stop there talking, because it's just creating destructive separations between people. Yeah.
What
Yeah, just go on. You should. Anyway.
I'll say it loud. Polygamayim, is it related to this with Peleg?
Yeah.
So what's
The streams, different streams of water coming from one source.
oh, so like that's
It's a
Polygamayim
stream.
Shanam, so it's like
Yeah,
that
so
diversion.
Peleg means separate ways. That's what Peleg means. Peleg l'shonam. A plugta, that's how you say it in Aramaic. A plugta means
Plag mincha.
plag mincha. Plag mincha means the last time of, right, the latest of mincha. Well, not the really latest of mincha. It's machlokas. Anyway, it's a division. It's a separation. That's what plag means. Yomam v'alad yisavua al chamoseh. Now David HaMelech is now expanding this. And that's how he's working this through. This, any psychologist who wants to study this and how David HaMelech is going to work through his emotions. So now he said what it was. He said what was bothering him. That there's Lashon Hara that's separating, that's making separations in the Jewish people. And he says like this: what happens when a person's a Baal Lashon Hara? When a person loses control of their mouth? The first time you say something that you enter into an argument, or you enter into the realm of speech that you shouldn't be entering into. The first comment is hard, because you're deliberating back and forth, you're debating back and forth, yes, no, yes, no. But once you jump into that place of machlokas, of arguments, then it's like being in a whirlwind that you can't even pull yourself out of. Yamam v'layla, day and night, yisovevuha al chamoseha. They're running, they're circling the walls. In other words, they became so consumed, that same word that I want you to consume them, they became so consumed with their complaints and their misjudging of the situation, says David HaMelech, that they're not in control anymore. They're like going around in circles. And now he's describing what happens. He's describing the city, and the Lashon Hara spread not just from people to people, but now it's expanding its territory. And we all know that now that we all have phones and we have WhatsApps and we have instant messaging and all of that, we know. And you also have a circle of friends, you have your chats. And in 1 second, with one press of the button, we could really mess up so much. It hurts so many people. So Yamalani so well, said there, the vision, the picture that he's painting is of guards who are running around the walls of the city. And they're, the commentaries explain that they're surrounding the city with a lack of protection. Because usually a guard surrounds the city with protection. Why should go on just to talk?
Yeah, that's why you ask questions in the chat.
So normally the guards surround the city and they protect. But here what he's saying is that they're surrounding the city and they're weakening the protection of the city. How do you keep your home protected? So you have a sign on your door that says Lashon Hara is not welcome here, or whatever those cute little signs that people are putting up, right? Lashon Hara doesn't speak to me, or I don't know, whatever those things are. You protect your own Dalet Amos. You protect your space. Because if you don't protect your space, then it's going to come through. People will say the following introductory words. This is not really Lashon Hara, but it's always the introductory words, so this is Lashon Hara. Or I really don't have a hard time explaining this or telling us. You know where those phrases are going to. So how do you protect yourself from Lashon Hara? This is a question that when we learn the laws of Shmiras HaLashon in the beginning, especially when we learn it with beginners, and they're so fascinated because in the secular world, there's no concept of Shmiras HaLashon, just the opposite. There's a concept of how can I be snide and how can I be so clever as to say something in such a way that I look clever and they look terrible. So one of the things that I like to teach first about in really beginners is it's a mitzvah ben adam l'chaveiro. And I said, do you know that it's forbidden to lie and to say slander and to gossip and to talk about anybody? They were like, really? Why? They don't hear about these things. And so and when we learn about that, you're not allowed to listen to Lashon Hara. That's the big question of, well, how can I prevent that? In my office, that's all they do all day long is talk about the boss. When as soon as he closes the door, right away they talk about him. As soon as he opens the door, everybody gets back to work. Or, in sales, how much did she make? Well, she just took my sale away from me. It really wasn't her. The girls tell me that they're in the workforce, they're bombarded with Lashon Hara. How do they not hear it? So the Chavetz Chaim tells us a very, very, very simple trick, and that is, first of all, the first way of doing any of Avodas Hashem is to ask Hashem to help you. I never want to hear Lashon Hara ever for the rest of my life. I just said it for you, say Amen. That's all. We all said that tefillah. I never want to hear Lashon Hara or Mechilus or Motzi Shema ever again for the rest of my life. That's number one. Number two, when a person is so careful with the way that they speak, then they have a certain aura around them, actually even a certain reputation, that people are a little bit embarrassed to say bad in front of them or to them, because they know that this is not the kind of communication that person ever utilizes. This person doesn't speak this way. You speak to a person in the language that they're used to speaking. So if you become known, if people know that that you don't speak about other people, then slowly they'll get the idea. It doesn't come instantaneously, but they slowly get the idea that at your table, at your Shabbos table, or in conversation with you, they're not going to feel comfortable. They just won't feel comfortable speaking about what they'll be. They might be comfortable speaking to somebody else, but not to you. So I'll tell you that sometimes we have a teaching in Torah called Lashon Nikiya. Like, for example, we know that it's forbidden to ever curse Hashem. The Torah doesn't use the word curse, it uses the word bless. It's forbidden to bless, in quotation marks, Hashem. It's forbidden because, and the Torah uses the word bless, even though it might lead perhaps to misunderstanding, but the Torah wants to teach us, try your best to avoid even negative words. Forget Lashon Hara, that's an Isidore, right? So that's forbidden. But even negative words, see if you can formulate what you're about to say in the most positive way possible. Because we all learn together some of the Ma'amarim V'Yanuka, the Rav Shlomo Yehuda Be'eri Shlita. So, and because his shiurim are all over the internet now, and Baruch Hashem, they're beginning to do English subtitles. So you can go on YouTube and you can find some of his shiurim already. It's a very massive project to make English subtitles to a shiur. It's a massive project, but anyway, they're starting to do it. But he was once on a Moshe Shabbos, he was playing music, and he was telling a story. And in the story, there was a story that it was like a Baal Shem Tov story. But in this story, he had to say about somebody somebody was walking in the forest, and he sees a person who had passed away. And he couldn't bring himself to say the words, he saw a dead body. Now, I just said those words because I'm not on his level. But he couldn't say it. So you see in the shiur, you see how he's struggling to say it. And the man was walking in the forest, and he sees a person, and he's not alive. Like he couldn't even say those words. And finally, he ended up saying he was a meis mitzvah. A meis mitzvah is a mitzvah in the Torah, that if you see a person in the middle of nowhere who passed away and there's no one to bury him, then you have to be involved in burying him. Or even if a person passes away and they have no next of kin, sometimes you have the Rabbanim send out a message on the chats. There's a levaya, a funeral for a meis mitzvah. Please come to make a minyan. And usually a lot of people come to that. So he was only able to express the fact that there was a person who died in the forest when he attached it to some mitzvah in the Torah. We don't have to be so, but to point out the desire to have a pure mouth, to say as much as you can, to speak as much as you can, and when you have to talk, talk to Hashem. When you talk to Hashem, this is how I preface. I'll share with you. I shared this with you already before. I'll share it again. This is how I preface when I talk to Hashem about somebody who's hurt me. I say, Hashem, I officially forgive so-and-so. Officially convene the Bezdin Shalmala. I am testifying. I forgive everybody. But please, Hashem, what can I do? I have emotions and I'm not perfect. So if I still feel bad, I feel bad about what happened, but don't punish them just because I haven't made my character traits so superior that I could just ignore it and let it, fly off my shoulder. So that's how I talk. And then I'll tell Hashem, did you see what just happened? But I'll preface it by Hashem, this is my issue. It's between me and you. That person, I don't want any Jew to ever be harmed on my account. Unless he owes me money, and then then if I can get the money in a Bezdin or in a proper way of negotiating, I'm not nevata on that, but stam, to give a person Gehenna just because they insulted me, or because they were insensitive to me, or because they didn't understand my own sensitivities and how I need to, I see a whole bunch of you are nodding, okay. Don't punish somebody else just because of their lack of sensitivity. But I have to tell you now, what hurts me it's echoing me, it's bothering me, Hashem. That's what David HaMelech is saying here. Okay, and then he says, and then it spreads out. So if you're a Baal Lashon Hara, if a person speaks Lashon Hara, so then it stays with you a little bit, then it spreads out to the walls, it spreads out more and more, your circle gets bigger and bigger, this one tells to that one. The famous joke that a secret is something that you tell one person one at a time. That's what a secret is. I'll tell you, don't tell anybody else. Then that person says to the other person, okay, I'm telling you, but don't tell anybody else. And that's how a secret spreads. How does a secret spread? It's a secret. Because I'm telling you, I'm only telling you, and that person says, well, they're thinking, if you only told me, so I'll only tell them. Here's a word in Tehillim that many people don't know how to pronounce the Hebrew of it, so I just want to show it to you because we have to finish. That word, pasuk yud beis, is the first word, you know how to say it? How would you read that word?
Havot.
Right. You read it as havot. The first vav, even though it has a dot in it, it's not an u sound. That first, we have two vavs, it's just a vav.
Like it makes it a vav versus like a nakuda.
No. That dot in the vav is an unusual dot.
Oh, yeah.
It's not supposed to be, I mean, it's supposed to be there, but it's not a vowel dot. It's an emphasis dot.
Right.
So we say that as havos or havot. The first vav is a v sound, and then the vowel that goes with it is the cholamale, is the o sound. So havot. Havot bikirba. So havot means evil, badness, corruption. So what happens is when a person begins to speak, so in the city, the whole area, the whole neighborhood becomes polluted. Did you ever go into a polluted neighborhood? Meaning, it could be air pollution. Why do we have air pollution nowadays more than any other time in planet history? Air pollution, water pollution, earth depletion of the four elements. You have earth depletion, air pollution, right? Because because now we're saying a lot of lashon hara. Air pollution just means pollution of the mouth. Water pollution is pollution of pleasure, because when we learned the four elements, the water elements is the elements of pleasure. Now we have too much need for pleasure, and not just pleasure, but comfort. Our parents were able to mistader. If things were difficult, they would say, okay, you gotta get through this. You're gonna have to learn you're gonna get through this, you're gonna have to learn to deal with it. We can't do that. We get very, so, havos b'kirba, so this is what happens now, is in this place, whether it's your house, whether it's your room, whether it's your personal space, whether it's your city, whether it's your neighbor, whatever it is, whatever got infected with lashon hara, it spreads and it infects, and you have to disinfect it. You know in Hebrew how to say disinfect? The same word in Hebrew for sin, chatat, chet, is to disinfect. Chet, chatat, also means to put like alcohol on something. That's lachti or machti, is to what we used to do with our hands in Corona time, right? Put that gook on to disinfect the hands. That's called lachti. So whenever your space, we're going to finish with this puzzle. We're going to start with it again next week. Remind me. I'll put a circle in my Tehillim that we're in your days. So whenever we've been infected by, polluted by something, whether it's suspecting another person, whatever it is, whatever negativity is in your life, we have to get rid of it, because otherwise it spreads and it spreads. So, okay, we're going to stop now because it's very, very late and we have to run. Good Shabbos, everybody. Thank you all.
Shabbos, I just wanted to say just before that I hadn't seen Shoshana Kaplan, but I think she was on. She might have gone off now. I know that she's there, Shoshana Kaplan. That's Ramona's mom. And Ramona is making Ufruf this Shabbos. They have Chasana on Sunday here in London. So I don't know if she's here or there, but that's Shoshana and Ramona. But I was wondering, I don't know if she can hear, but I don't think that Ramona was going to miss this morning. I mean, it's only an Ufruf and a wedding, but we'll forgive her. And Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. When she told me she's making.
Thank you.
You're too young to make